What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the American South Fishing Podcast. I got Kevin Riney with me here, man. Me and Kevin have had a conversation in the past, but I feel like Kevin might be a little bit more excited this time than he was the last time that he was on.
Man, last time we got to talk a little bit about fishing, but this time we just did something pretty crazy, pretty special, and so I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, like I said, Kevin and I got to spend a lot of time talking about glide baits the last time that he was on. So I got to learn a lot about that, and I hope everybody else did. But Kevin just recently caught what was it, 12-pound and what?
12.4.
12-pound.
Yeah, 12.04.
12.04. And he actually was the first person to donate a fish to the Arkansas Legacy Bass Program in its first year, which is super cool. So Kevin is now in the history books for certain, which is something we were just joking about. And Kevin, so that day you went out to Lake Austell. Is that how you say it?
Yep, it is. So Lake Austell, it's in Village Creek. Go ahead.
No, you got it, man. Tell us about it.
Okay, Village Creek State Park. It's got two sister lakes. It's Dunn and Estelle. They just set just a couple miles from each other, or even less than that. And they've been known in the past to have these giant bass. So, and of course, I've caught a few of them in the past. We've kind of tried to keep it under our hat. And when they announced the program, we knew exactly where we were going. So we went straight there, me and my son both, and just prepared nothing but big tackle and heavy line and targeted these fish.
So I mean, I don't want you to give away all the secrets. First off, I think that lake probably now is everybody's knows now. I imagine the number of boats that are about to be in that lake is about to go up, which is part of what you want people to have the opportunity to catch fish. I know people a lot of times in the fishing community like to gatekeep a little bit, but I imagine it wasn't the last time, honestly, and it probably won't be the last time that we see two more big fish caught out of that lake. But I did want to ask you about, not only did you catch a massive fish out of that lake, but your son and his good friend did as well, did they not?
They did, and so to be honest with you, like I said, he fished it a day or two before I had a chance to, and he came really close. He had caught a 9, I think maybe 2 9s, right before I caught that big one, and I was like, man, he's gonna be the first person. Which, I mean, it's not, either way, whether he's the first or I'm the first, just to both be in the program is super awesome. But yeah, he came close, and then he had to go back to work, and so I snuck over there Saturday, and it all worked out. And then, of course, I had to call him and rub it in a little bit, be like, "Hey, your old man, he beat you to the punch."
So, yeah, absolutely. So, do you mind telling us what you were able to catch that fish on? Were you using a glide bait or?
I was. So, like I said before, I throw glides a lot. I made them there with Rocks Outfitters. I wasn't throwing one that I made. So the one we make is about 8 inches long, and this bait was even bigger than that. So we don't even make one as big as the bait I was throwing. But yeah. So I went out there and I scoped all morning, and I mean, I had seen big ones, but I mean, you know how it is with scope. You see them, but you can't necessarily make all those fish eat. And so lots and lots of them just, they eluded me. They come up, check the bait out, they just didn't care. And this particular fish was within these things swimming together, out perfect for me. So I threw that big glide bait in front of her, and I got that front one to turn, and there happened to be a school of gizzard shad fairly close to my boat. And I kind of ran that bait up, as fairly close to those gizzards as I could get it. And I think that helped me out tremendously, because when that bass kind of got a little closer, of course, them gizzards hightailed it out of there, and the only thing left was that bait. So that put the odds in my favor. So it ran up there super close to it. And you know how it is. Like I said, you can see it on scope. And still just didn't eat it. And I'm like, come on, you crazy fish. Like, cause I knew, you know, if I could get it to bite, that it was probably going to be one of the ones that was, you know, really close to that 10-pound mark. And,
Right.
you know, I twitched it another couple times and it loaded up.
Dang. So when obviously once you saw it swim, like you knew it was about to bite, and you set the hook on it. What were the emotions like when you're like,
Oh,
oh man?
dude. So actually another buddy of mine was, he was there in his boat fishing, and, there was a couple other bass boats with us too. And, my buddy was close enough to me, you know, we could talk. So when I seen the fish, like I said, I knew it was one of the ones. And when I set the hook on the fish, I mean, you know, I got, you know, an 8-foot swim bait rod, you know, oversized reel and, you know, heavy line. And I mean, that fish didn't move. I mean, it was, you know, it was like just setting it into a wall, you know, and it ran. And when I got it up close to the boat, I got a glimpse of it, and it ran down the side of the boat, and I could see from the top to the bottom of it that it was just, you know, it was definitely going to be one of the ones. And I told my buddy, I'm like, dude, this is her. If I can put her in the boat, you know, it's it. And so, you know, I finally got her turned around and got her head coming my way. And, you know, I tried to put her in the net, and she was about too fat to get in the net. I was like, hey, this is good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So my buddy started trolling toward me, and he said, man, he said, are you sure it's a 10-pounder? And I'm like, I promise you it's a 10. And he got closer, and he said, you know, he said, the closer I troll to you, he said, that fish just keeps growing. He said, I think you're right. And so, of course, we put it on the scales, and it showed 12.
Man, I can't imagine. So is that your personal best there?
Yes, like I said, I've caught some 10s, but yeah, I had not caught anything bigger. I've caught a few 10s, but nothing bigger than that. And I didn't expect that one to be no 12. Like I was thinking, yeah, it's 10 something. It's, you know, I had actually earlier that day I'd caught an 8 and 2 6s and a 5. And, you know, the 8's a big fish, but when you compare it to a 10, you know, it's just not the same. And that fish I knew was there, but I had no idea that it weighed 12 pounds. And I put it on the scales. I think I about fell out of the boat. I was like, dang, it's bigger than I thought. So super exciting. I couldn't wait, you know.
What
I was
a
just
day on the lake,
pumped.
anyways. On top of that, 37 plus pounds on 5 fish. My God.
Yeah. I had a 37 something pound bag. You know, the first one I caught, I'm like, hey, it's a pretty good one, but I mean, it's no, you know, and I weighed 5 something. And my next two, like I said, was the next one was a 6, the next one was 8, and another 6. And I'm like, man, I mean, those are all good fish, but they're, you know, and I was like, I'm gonna have to try to pick out the absolute biggest fish that I can see. But you know, the next couple I seen were them two swimming together, and I knew they were both just giant fish.
Man, that's super exciting. So, how big were the bass that your son and his buddy had caught the day? That was the day after, correct?
It was the day after, yeah. So I think he had caught a 9 the day before that. And like I said, a lot of the locals knew that it had them, and everybody just kind of tried to keep it under their hat. And we really hated to, you know, to even really talk about it. And I asked Game and Fish, you know, hey, can we kind of keep this quiet for a little while? And he said, you know, probably for a couple weeks, we can kind of keep it under our hat, and, you know, maybe we can put it out there. Hey, can anybody guess?
Sorry, guys, we're having a few technical difficulties. We're getting it straightened out. But so the day after you caught your fish, your son and his buddy caught their fish, and you were talking about how you had tried to talk Game and Fish into keeping it under wraps, at least for a little bit. So if you want to pick up kind of right there.
Oh yeah, so Game and Fish told me, you know, maybe we can keep it secret for a couple weeks. And then they called me when they got the fish back to the Lone Oak Fish Hatchery, and they gave me an update on the fish. Said she was doing fine. But they told me, hey, we're a public knowledge, being a state-run program, and we got to release that information. We can't, if we don't, the phones are going to be blowing up Monday. Everyone's going to want to know where this fish came from, and we have no choice to tell them. So it's either answer the phones all day long, or go ahead and release it. So it was kind of a little heartbreaking. We didn't, we don't want the lake, people to go in there and just destroy the fishery. But
well, I think the great thing about that though is now that because I've actually had conversations with Will and I think his boss Jeremy. I've talked to both of those guys, and one thing that they reiterated to me was when they do get those fry from those bass and they are stocking them back into lakes, they're going to put them in lakes that will hold those kind of fish. So
right.
You're probably not going to see them go put a 12-pounder, the fry from a 12-pounder in a lake like, Norfolk, where
Right.
Holland Reservoir, where it's not going to thrive. They're going to put them in lakes like the lake you're talking about, where it's going to have a habitat it can thrive in. So I do understand where you're coming from, because you don't want to hurt the fish population in that way, but it is comforting knowing that those guys are going to probably put those hatchlings back into that lake to help create more bass like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I've got to know Will a little bit through all this, and he even told me, he said, "Man, I'm going to let you let that fish go yourself. If you can meet me back up here, and after we, spawn these fish, you can let it go yourself and put it back in the lake." And so pretty cool stuff. I mean, and yeah, maybe it's going to get lots of pressure for a little while, but maybe years to come, it'll keep producing fish like that. Along with the help of this program.
Yeah, and obviously for somebody like me who had no idea what Lake Estelle was, how many lakes do you think over the next few years are going to pop up like that? I know everybody's talking about Millwood and how it's going to produce, but do you think there's going to be more lakes that people probably don't know, especially from around the state? Maybe just the locals in the area know how great the lakes are, because you got a lot of those oxbow lakes in the area that you guys live in that produce. And how many lakes like that do you think, to reiterate, are going to end up producing these big bass, and people just, for the most part, had no idea?
Oh, I'm sure that there has to be, a handful of other lakes around that, just like here, that locals knew about. They were trying to keep it quiet, and they're excited for the first warming trend to get out there and try to catch one. So, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be places that show up that we're like, I've never heard of that place, but I need to go try it.
Right.
So and then too, I think that, maybe the first year they only put the fry back in the lakes they came from. But I think, as the years, like maybe next year or the year after, they're going to take some of these fry and, put them in other lakes, like you said, that are capable of growing these fish. And, they've done all this work to Conway. You can only imagine, because, a lot of times when they drain those lakes and they fill them back up, they have that new lake effect. And that first few years, those fish are as, big and healthy as they're ever going to be. I would think with Lake Conway, what they're doing to it, if they take these big giant bass that we're catching and, all across the state, and they breed them with these Titan bass that are coming from Georgia, and they stock a lake like that, I mean, who knows what would come out of it? I mean, it should be incredible fishing for Arkansas.
Yeah, and other lakes, like, for example, they're doing a lot of habitat management in Greer's Ferry Lake. They're doing a ton of work to try to because that lake is capable of producing big fish with the habitat that it has. They're just trying to improve it. Another one like Lake Washita with the grass that it has, and it can hold some big fish, and I'm sure we're going to learn more and more and more. But it's going to be amazing to see, and that's something else I wanted to touch on as we went through this conversation, was how cool do you think it is what they're doing with the Legacy Bass program in the state, and how different do you think it's going to make bass fishing in the next 5-10 years in the state of Arkansas?
Well, of course, they've been working with Texas. Texas has been doing it for years, and if you're an Arkansas guy, you always just packed up your stuff and went to Texas to go catch a big one. I mean, if you lived in Missouri or any surrounding state close, you were not stopping here to go catch a fish. You were going to Texas.
Right.
And so I think that with what they've learned through working with Texas and what they're going to be doing, I mean, I think it's a great, great deal for the state. Like, used to all you heard about was Arkansas duck hunting. And, I think they're kind of missing out because, if they take care of these lakes and manage them right and they grow big bass here, these guys, like I said, in surrounding states, instead of driving that far south, they're going to stop off here and they're going to spend money and, all these local towns that surround that. They're going to, stay in the hotels. They're going to go to the restaurants and eat. Like, it's just nothing but more revenue for the state. I just think it's good all the way around. Local businesses can capitalize on it. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, add to what you're saying there, like when you have these lakes that they're going to renovate basically and provide these big bass that are going to bring in a lot of fishing tourists. Well, you have those lakes in Southwest Arkansas like DeGray and Washita and Hamilton and Millwood are all pretty close to each other there. I'm pretty certain. Whenever you have all of that going on, well, then, like you said, somebody can say, well, instead of going down to Lake Fork where there's no other lake close to there, well, I can go spend a week in Arkansas and I can fish 3, 4, 5 different lakes and have an opportunity to catch some big bass. And it's going to be huge for the state. So I think it is definitely and it's going to have a massive impact in that regard. And so I'm excited about that for certain. Because I'm like you, dude. I want to go down to Bussy Break and Lake Fork and lakes like that to go try to catch a big one. And right now, I bet we're about to find out more about which lakes you can go do that in Arkansas.
Right, that's right.
But as far as we had known, you couldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Right, and there are some lakes that are definitely going to show up. Like, I totally expect to see some more out of Millwood. Would not surprise me if Washita and Hamilton, some fish come from there. DeGray always, somebody always catches a giant out of DeGray. So there'll probably be a fish come from DeGray or, maybe multiple fish. So, I mean, there's some lakes that, you don't hear about it a whole lot, but guys are catching some giant bass. And, with the help of this, it should just increase it. And over the years should be more and more and more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what was the process like after you caught the fish? So you call the guys at that program and then what happened after you said, hey, I just caught a 12-pounder?
Yep. So I got a hold of Will and, he wanted to know the condition of the fish. He wanted to make sure that, I didn't catch it from 40 foot of water and she was floating upside down in my live well. And, so I assured him, hey, she's healthy. She didn't come from that deep of water. And he said, man, we're headed your way. It took them roughly about 2 hours to get to me. And then, they were extremely cautious and careful with everything they'd done with the fish. Eric got to me first and he crawled over in the boat and, he just wanted to look at her and make sure. Of course, he opened the lid. She was perfect. She's sitting upright, just chilling. And so they got there and, of course, we got, official scales out and they weighed her and, just kind of went through the normal paperwork stuff, make sure you got a fishing license and all that kind of thing. After, a few years ago with what happened with the guy catching a big and a no fishing license, surely everybody's got a fishing license. So,
right.
But yeah, they checked that type of stuff and officially weighed her. And, of course, we got a bunch of pictures and, like I said, they were super, super particular with her. They were real careful with how they handled her. They didn't want to touch her very much. And, they were checking oxygen levels and all kinds of things to make sure she was doing good.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. It sounds like they're definitely on top of it. And obviously, after starting the program, you would hope that they would be as dedicated to making sure that fish was you don't want to give them that fish and they get it down to Lone Oak and on the way there, something happens to it. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that break your heart to kill one like that. Just to. But yeah, they gave me updates. They told me, I talked to Will not long ago. He said that fish is doing fine. He said they had her, in a big raceway and had a bunch of shiners in there with her. So I'm sure right now she's like all you can eat buffet and living it up.
Well, I
So
guarantee it, man, with the cold water and her, spawn, getting ready to spawn here, I mean, it seems like it's forever away, but it's really not that far off. It's amazing how quickly it goes by. So I'm sure she's fattening up.
oh yeah, I would like to see her full eggs and kind of see what she weighs. So he gave me the measurements on the fish, and she was 26 inches long by 20 inches around.
Wow.
So you think about 20 inches around, she is already a butterball.
Yeah.
Pretty cool fish.
That is super cool. So then, the next day your son and his good friend got to go through a similar process. And because of the fish that y'all caught, y'all are all entered in some type of giveaway, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. So his actually they kind of got it wrong. His was a couple days after I caught mine. But yes, him and his one of his good friends he works with went back down there, and his buddy caught the first one, and they called me and they were super excited, and then he's like, man, we got a couple hours before they can get to us. We got to get off this phone and work real hard and try to come up with another one. And about 45 minutes later, he called me back and was like, Dad, you won't believe it, but we got another one. And he said, so we both have caught one for the program. So super, super exciting. And of course, then that process started again. So, but yes, out of the program itself, everybody gets a replica of the fish, which is, just cool within itself, just to have a replica of a fish that big. But then, everybody's name gets thrown in a pot for a brand new express boat. So that's pretty exciting. Like you think, if you go fish a big bass tournament for a boat, there's probably 200 guys in that bass tournament and you're competing against them. So you look at this, there's probably not going to be 200 guys catch a 10-pound bass between now and March.
No.
So our odds are probably going up pretty good.
Yeah. And, I guess if you win it, you're going to find out here before long how many friends you got.
Oh man, yeah, I think I got all kinds of friends now. They're, everybody. Hey, what'd you catch that fish on? Everybody knows where, so now everybody wants to know.
That's
what'd
true.
You catch that fish on?
I didn't think of that. Yeah, they put your face all over Facebook, so you probably had a ton of people reach out to you.
Oh yeah, we've done all kinds of stuff. It's been pretty exciting. Like, I fish professionally, with MLF. And I qualified to the Toyota Series, and I finished second in one of the Toyota Series events. And like you get a little bit of attention, like you get some phone calls from different folks, and a few interviews or whatever. But this fish, I think, is you'd think you won the classic. Like I'm telling you, it's been crazy. Like I got finished with lunch the other day, and I got in the vehicle, the phone rang, and it was Bassmaster, and they're like, hey man, you got a few minutes for an interview? I'm like, are you sure you got the right number? So I'm just a redneck that got a big fish. But
it's still pretty cool, and it's obviously you're pretty humble about it, but it's still you also did a interview with Wired to Fish, you had said, and so you're getting all this national attention, and like you said, you're like, man, I'm just a guy who likes to fish. Yeah,
we love to chase them, whether they're tournament fishing or chasing some big ones, and but it's been pretty wild. Like I said, Wire to Fish, like I said, it's super cool to be on their stuff, and like I said, it was just super crazy to have Bassmaster call, and he's like, oh yeah, I got your number from so and so. I'm like, I don't even remember who that is. Like, but thanks for calling. I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
So really cool stuff.
Yeah, dude. Well, man, I'm excited for you. After that, I definitely wanted to get you back on here. And I honestly had a great time talking with you last time about glide baits. But dude, well, I appreciate you taking a little time out of your evening to come on here and talk about that process and obviously tell the story of the whole thing. So Congratulations again on catching that bass. I'm sure that was an absolute blast, dude. But as for me and Kevin, thanks for joining me at the American South Fishing Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.